For this session, I wrote 109 words. For this session, I wrote 67 words, and my week's total is 1,006 words. Today I pulled the Joker and 7 spades, the Empress and the Queen of Swords, Sacrifice and Queen of Cups. And then from my giant tarot, I pulled the Queen of Pentacles and then the 7 Wands. They're huge. I finally caved and bought the giant Rider-Waite-Smith tarot, and I'm absolutely obsessed. It's so fun. It's like twice the magic. They are a little tough to shuffle, but so worth it in my opinion. Anyways, let's talk about my writing, how that's going, and then some more books. Lately, I have been feeling a little indifferent about my manuscript, and that's something that I have come to accept as part of the complex writing process. I'm at a good place in terms of the discipline and habit of my writing practice, but I do still notice that there are phases or seasons where I'm just not feeling what I'm doing. It's not as exciting as it was in the beginning. It's not as interesting to me, and I feel like that's kind of a problem I run into regularly. Every time I start a project, I get to a place where I'm like, oh man, I'm not as excited about this anymore. The honeymoon phase is over, is what I've framed it as. And now it's a matter of trusting my process and just showing up, doing the writing to the best of my abilities, and letting the time pass until my manuscript is complete. I am, in a way, in a kind of a slump with my writing, and in such a place, I remind myself that the focus is to finish and just to continue trusting my process. And I'll have to say that it is so much easier to trust a process that's not consuming my entire life. I think that part of why I'm feeling like I'm in a slump is because I'm in a very tedious place in my manuscript where things are being explained, and it is an inevitable part of the story that I feel like will help the readers understand it more. But I still hate the parts where I just have to explain, because I feel like, is there not a better, more craftier way to do this part? But I don't think there is at this point. In a way, it feels cliche that I have to have this part, but it's like super necessary, and I can't think of another way out of it. So that's kind of why I'm feeling like I'm in a bit of a slump. Now let's talk about some books. Yesterday, I went to Barnes & Noble's because I really wanted to pick up this book. This is going to be a very controversial subject, but bear with me. For me, my interest in this book is purely character driven, in the sense that I have had some interest in studying Melania's story and her framing of her own narrative, because also as someone who's lived life in the public eye, she's had a lot of her story spoken by strangers. Given that she's also married to one of the most controversial figures in modern times, I find her character rather interesting. Generally, I'm aware that Melania had a career in modeling, and she primarily came to the limelight through that pathway, and then she married Trump. My intrigue is that, given her background in modeling and having been in the circles of Hollywood and being married to a very, very, very polarizing man, how she keeps her head held up high and how she continues to be so self-possessed is what I want to learn. I think there's more to Melania than her having a strong poker face or just her being a rather private person, because truthfully, many women in her kind of position, they could take alternative paths. And we see this a lot, especially with people from the Hollywood circle, the modeling world. People get divorced, people find lovers, things like that. But with Melania, she has stayed with Trump for quite a long time, and especially through incredibly challenging bouts of public life. I think that says a lot about the fortitude of their marriage, and I'm very curious about that because it takes a very, very strong mind to be able to withstand those kinds of challenges and still keep your head held high and not lose your shit. People have argued that, this is a power grab for her, this is a money grab for her, and perhaps there's a bit of that element of security involved for her, but I don't think that her marriage to such a polarizing man as Trump would continue to be in existence if there weren't actually like real love between them, and how Trump adores her and elevates her as someone very, very important and pivotal to his life. I don't think that's just talk. It could be argued that she simply tolerates her husband in the marriage for the security, but as I've seen photos of them recently and over the course of the past 8 years, which is insane that it's been 8 years, I think there's something genuine between them. And in recent photos and videos of Melania, it really seems that she has made a lot of peace with herself in her role as First Lady and as wife to Trump, and that she's done a lot of reflecting. I think we're all capable of perceiving when someone has done the inner work. There's just a different kind of radiance about that person. And that is why I am interested to learn about her story and hear it from her frame of words. Of course, it is curated, but we all curate our stories anyways. That's just the nature of narrative, and also how someone curates their story can tell you a lot about them as well. It is a bit of a slim book, and I got the hardback, but it's nice because the cover also is the same on the actual book itself. And then I also found this book, The Essential Marcus Aurelius, tucked into a little corner in a bookshelf, and I thought this would be a great just to grab and go easy study book to carry around with me. Let's talk about the books that I am reading and what I finished. I made more progress in Outlander, and I had to stop because I did not expect how Claire and Jamie, which I've never seen the show, by the way. I went into this completely blind, but it's a pretty famous show, and I think we all know that there is chemistry between Jamie and Claire, and we kind of all can just, off the bat guess that there's going to be something between them. Anyways, without giving it fully away, like how they came together, I was not expecting that, and I had to pause it for a minute because I wanted to process it and appreciate their joining. The way that Jamie and Claire end up together is very, very sweet. It put me right into my feels, and wow. I'm at page 286 now, and I have quite a ways. I've got until page 850 I made more progress in City of Bones. I am now at page 182. Loving this. I made a lot of progress in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I would say a little over a third of the way through. So I've been enjoying that. And then I finished The Wisdom of Insecurity by Alan Watts. And wow, where do I even begin with this? It is a spirituality book. It is a philosophy book. I mean, it's listed under philosophy and religion. It's basically a book that'll change the way that you think about reality and existence. Very metaphysical type book. I absolutely love this book and I will be rereading it. But here's my thing about these kinds of books that teach you the nothingness of reality. While I agree with that, and while I feel that it helps me to recenter myself in the midst of overwhelming thoughts, and it helps me to find peace, my challenge with spirituality books like this is that it doesn't also teach you that if you don't want to live in the nothingness and the bliss of nothingness, like what the alternatives are. Let me try to unpack this a little bit. It's a very dense subject, can be complex, so I'm trying to figure out how to really say this best. So it is supremely beneficial for mental health, for a sense of peace and fulfillment and contentment, to be able to detach from the world by recognizing that everything changes, that is the only constant variable in life, that what we label in our world, our reality, is nothing but that. It doesn't reflect the true essence of what something is to have a label to it. Everything is, and we invent constructs to capture what is and to dissect and to differentiate the mass of what is. And when we give experience, sensations, feelings, thoughts, names or labels, we remove ourselves from the truth of what is, which is the blanket existence spiritually. The blanket existence is also known as the present now, and it is in the present now that we have peace, contentment, bliss, all those euphoric sensations. But my question is, what happens when you only exist in the now? What does your life look like? And it's that image of a monk or a guru or a classic spiritual teacher of like just a very simple kind of life. And that's great if you want to be a spiritual teacher, but what about people who don't want to be spiritual teachers, who still want to experience life in a different kind of aesthetic, with different kinds of forms, playing with forms, not doing away with them altogether? That's my question. Because often these kinds of teachings only explain how to do away with the forms, not how to coexist with them or to wield them. There's a heavy emphasis on the immaterial and embracing the immaterial and the simplified life. And I love that. I think that's necessary, especially in certain seasons after a really busy season or a really active season. But I also think that there is room to embrace the material aspects of the world in a spiritual manner as well. My personal philosophy is this, that yes, I agree that everything is inherently nothing, that everything is meaningless, that meaning doesn't exist. But I also believe that we can create meaning and we can play in that. I don't think it's less spiritual to participate in meaning creation, even though knowing that meaning isn't real. So that's my take. Again, I really, really, really do love this book and I will be rereading it. It will be a staple, but if you've read a lot of these kinds of books, you will start to, one may become easily apathetic about life reading too many of these books, is what I'm trying to say. Anyways, that is it for this discussion. I will update you when I have my writing session done. For this session, I wrote 71 words. And that is a wrap for this vlog.